Now let's take a look at another example of a statement which might cause an exception. Okay, I'm building upon the same the previous example. We have a demo class with method 1 calling method 2 calling method 3, and I've inserted some code into method 3. Let's take a look at the code here. On line 15, I'm creating a new file object test. The new file object is I'm passing into the constructor of file the name of the file which I will want to open later. It's just a text file, test.txt. Create a scanner object, and this time instead of reading input from the keyboard, I'm going to read stuff from the file object. Basically, I'm going to open up test.txt and read stuff from it. I'm going to call the next line method of the scanner object, which will read the first line in test.text and put it into the local variable called stuff, and I'm going to print out. So basically, when method 3 is called, you open test.text, read the first line of that file, and print to the screen, and then you return to method 2. Now the strange thing is, if you try to compile demo, you get a compilation error. Let's try to understand what is this all about. It says on line 16, and this is line 16. Alright, what's wrong with line 16? On line 16, there's an unreported exception called file not found exception. Must be caught or declared to be thrown, and it's pointing to this statement, line 16. What does that mean? Alright, let's take a look at the API documentation of scanner. So this is the scanner class, and the arrow was pointing to the constructor of scanner, alright, which takes in a file object. So let's check out the constructor of scanner, which takes in a file object. Quite a few overloaded constructors here. Apparently this is the one which you are looking at, the one which takes in a file object. Okay, this is the method signature of the constructor. Now look at this. It is documented clearly that when you call the constructor, you can only call the constructor of scanner by using a new keyword, correct? When you call the constructor, you are able to it may throw a file not found exception if the source is not found. Alright, if the source is not found, which is kind of related to this error message, because it says file not found exception might be thrown when you actually call the constructor of the scanner object. Alright, so how do we solve this problem? I'll explain more about this later. Not found exception. Okay, the file not found exception is in the java.io package. Java.io package. So you have to import the correct package. Import java.io.star. Okay. Anyway, the class file is in java.io package as well. So I'll need this import statement anyway. Okay, I'm going to print an error message here. System.print line error. Okay, plus e.get message. Okay, if you recall, get message SSAGE is a method of the exception class. Okay, and it is a method of the exception class which will find its way to file not found exception. Save this. Let's try to compile again, and this time demo compiles. Okay, let's try to run it. Test. Let's take a look at test. Test basically contains a main method which creates an instance of demo and calls method 1. Alright, so main will call method 1, you call method 2, you call method 3, which goes to line 15, 16, 17. On line 17, alright, there's a problem. On line 17, there's a problem. A file not found exception is thrown. I'm going to skip 18, 19, and I'm going to run the catch block. Basically, I'm going to print error, okay, which is what you see here, and get message. The get message method returns test.txt. The system cannot find the file specified. This shows that the catch block has run. Okay, and after the catch block, I'll just return to method 2, and method 2 return to method 1, and so on. Okay, so there's a file not found exception. The reason is because I do not have test.txt. Test.txt. Let me just create a quick one. Create a new file called test.txt. The first line. This line is read from test.txt. Okay, save it. I'm saving the same directory or the same folder as my demo.class. I'm going to run test again this time. There's no exception caught, and you will print out this line is read from test.txt. Basically, the first line read from this text file. Okay, now the question which you should be asking now is, why did I get a compilation error, okay, without the try and a catch? Basically, why did I get this compilation error? Alright, without the try and a catch. What does the compiler mean by unreported exception? File not found exception must be called or declared to be thrown. Now previously we had a statement integer.parseIn, okay, which might throw a number format exception. There was also another statement, okay, the usage of the division operator, okay, which might throw an arithmetic exception. Here we have another statement, basically a constructor, which might throw a file not found exception. Okay, in a situation when test.txt is not found in the current directory. So what is the difference between file not found exception and the previous two exceptions we have seen, number format exception and arithmetic exception? Now, the difference lies here. There are two types of exceptions: checked and unchecked exceptions. Alright? Checked and unchecked exceptions. Now, an unchecked exception is supposed to represent a not so critical problem. On the other hand, a checked exception is supposed to represent something more serious. An unchecked exception basically is an exception which extends runtime exception. So somewhere up there in the hierarchy, in the inheritance hierarchy, there is runtime exception. On the other hand, an unchecked exception extends exception indirectly or directly, but not runtime exception. So there is one rule here. A checked exception must either be declared to be thrown out of a method or throws out the method if you want to use the Java keyword. I'll demonstrate this very soon. Or it must be caught and handled in an exception handler or catch block. Otherwise, you will get a compilation error. So, number format exception, arithmetic exception belong to this category called an unchecked exception. Number format exception. If you check the hierarchy tree, hey, runtime exception is up there, so it is considered unchecked. Same for arithmetic exception. Okay. Realize that arithmetic exception extends runtime exception directly in this case. So both considered unchecked. There is no need for you to catch it if you don't want to. Your code will still compile. On the other hand, file not found exception. Okay. File not found exception is a checked exception. Okay, it extends IO exception, which extends exception. Okay, nowhere up there can you find runtime exception. Hence, file not found exception is what we call a checked exception. A checked exception In this case, line 16 may throw a checked exception, must be either thrown out of the method, that means thrown out of method 3, or caught in method 3. Okay, this code will compile because the found not found exception is caught in method 3. It is handled. Now the other way to compile method 3 without catching it in method 3, maybe sometimes you may not want to catch it in method 3, you may want to propagate the exception to the caller of method 3. You can use a throws keyword, and you use this in a signature, in the method signature of method 3, found not found exception. This is the fourth Java keyword which deals with exceptions. You have seen try, you have seen catch, you have seen finally. Now we're looking at throws with an S. Now what do I mean when I include this in my method signature? It simply means that when you call method 3, be ready that is going to throw a found not found exception back to you, the caller. I'm going to save this. Do you think this can compile? It still can't compile, and this time the compilation error points to line 11, not line 16. Alright, and it is a same error. Unreported exception must be called or declared to be thrown, and it's this line. Now why is that the case? This method is now compilable because I have chosen, remember, a check exception must be either caught or declared to be thrown back to the caller of the method. I have done a second one in method 3. Now as far as method 2 is concerned, line 11 might cause a found not found exception, but it is not caught in method 2, and it is not declared to be thrown out of method 2. So same thing, two ways to solve the problem. Either you catch it, okay, catch found not found exception, okay, and deal with it, do something here, do something here. Okay, this will compile. Either you do this, or you declare that the found not found exception should be propagated back to the caller of method 2. This code will still not compile because of the same thing. So we want to, specify in method 1's signature that the found not found exception is to be thrown back to the caller. In this case, the caller will be the main method. Alright, now demo will compile, but test won't compile because, okay, on line 4, okay, line 4 in test might cause a found not found exception. Same rule applies. You either catch it here in the main method, or you declare be thrown out. Alright, now this is only done, okay, for demonstrational purposes. We do not usually throw an exception from the main method, because remember, what does the Java virtual machine do when an exception is thrown back from main to the Java virtual machine? It terminates the program, shows a stack trace, and there's a very ugly way, okay, to show an error to the user. Am I correct? So you can do this for demonstrational purposes, for testing purposes. This will compile. Oops, something is wrong. Now look at this error. It says cannot find symbol, and the symbol which could not be found is found not found. The reason is because I did not import java.io.star in test. Okay, remember that the found not found exception is actually in the java.io package, compiles. When I run it, okay, it works. But if I delete test.txt, okay, this causes a found not found exception when method 3 runs. And I run it, you see the stack trace. Now this stack trace is thrown all the way back from main, okay, to the Java virtual machine, and this is how the Java virtual machine handles an exception when it gets it from main. So the stack trace, you can look through a stack trace and it'll tell you which line number is the main cause of it. You can't see this clearly. I'm going to increase the width a bit. Okay, let me do this again. Look at this stack trace. The problem started at in this class file input stream when there's an open method. Now I said something about this previously. Okay, if it is not written by you, no point looking at it because you're not going to change the source code for file input stream line 138, whatever that is. Okay, I'm not going to look at this scanner.java line 656 not written by you. Okay, basically probably the constructor. This is the one you should start looking at, line 16 of demo.java. Okay, which was in turn called by line 11, which was in turn called by line 7, which was in turn called by line 6 of test.java. So although the whole stack trace is shown, you should start looking at line 16 of demo.java to find out, if there's any debugging required, that is the source of your exception. So a quick revision, there are two types of exceptions, checked and unchecked exceptions. Which type it is depends on the parent class of the exception. So if you want to write an exception class and you want to write an unchecked exception class, extend runtime exception or a subclass of runtime exception. If you want to write a checked exception class, make sure one of its parent is not runtime exception. Alright, now checked exception is more troublesome in the sense that a statement which might cause a check exception needs to either catch your check exception or declare it be thrown out of the method using the throws keyword. Okay, the throws keyword. For unchecked exception, it does not matter. Your code can compile even if you don't catch the exception or declare that it be thrown out of your method. Okay, so that's all I have to say for checked and unchecked exceptions.